Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Cloud Native. My name is Adrian Goins. Today, we're doing things a little bit differently. I'll explain why. So every night, I and my army of bots scour the internet for news and content related to Kubernetes and Cloud Native, and every day you'll find me here to share the bits that I find interesting. It's a curated list of content. I go through around 200 submissions every night, and I select just a handful of them for the next day's show. These are the tools that I would use, that I like, that I think are interesting, that I might want to use, and I want to share them with you so that we can all keep track of what's going on in this whole world around us and help one another out. So if you're watching live on Twitch, click the follow button for the channel, or if you're watching on YouTube, click the, if you're watching it anywhere, there's a button that says you like it. So do me a favor, click that button, and then all of the algorithms that control all the nonsense, share it with other people. And then there's more of us, and that's great too. Don't be selfish, share. So yeah, click the thumbs up, click the whatever. There is live chat that happens, obviously, on Twitch and on YouTube with this bot that relays between them, but the real live chat happens on Discord. So there's a link that I'll set up, scrolling across the bottom here. Come join, it's free, come hang out. We talk there, we talk all day long. It's the place to be. And in fact, there's a free community site as well, which you can join. And there's some benefits for that I'll talk about at the end of the show. Now, what's different about today? If you've watched the show recently, you know that I am currently in some kind of an internet drought. I don't know why. I pay lots and lots of money for internet that about 2 weeks ago just stopped working properly. Today, well, which for you is yesterday, so we'll pretend. Yesterday, the show was so messed up that I just re-recorded the show after lunch, and I uploaded a redone show as if it was streamed live. And I got some feedback that said that was actually rather nice, because you weren't dealing with me trying to check the internet and apologize for the stuff and the whatevers and the blah. So I thought, okay, notice it's dark outside. So I thought I would pre-record the show, because the goal of the show is not to live stream. The goal of the show is to share information with you. So if that means that I record the show at night and I play it live for you in the morning, I can do that by uploading it to Restream overnight and then having them send it out. And I will still join the live chat, and we'll still talk about stuff, and we'll see if this works better. So with that in mind, let's get started. I have some really cool stuff. I wasn't supposed to show you that yet. Darn it! That's supposed to be at the end. Okay, so, yeah. What do we got here? Robot Workshop. We had some stuff on the show a while ago about, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was the robot operating system. We're using Kubernetes little edge device thingies for robot stuff. And periodically little robot things pop up, but I don't put them on the show because I don't know very much about robotics. And remember that, they have to be tools and things that I think are cool and interesting. This, I think, is cool and interesting. If I was able to go, I absolutely would. There's wow, I love the retro modernness of it. So, Worldwide Workshop Wednesday. That's a lot of W's. WWWW. Oh, that makes total sense. So these folks are putting together a workshop on robot framework development. They will have workshops in English, Słomeksi, Deutsch, Dutch, Portuguese, Russian, and Espanol. Ruski. 2 words in Russian that I know. There's a lot of stuff going on. It looks very cool. You can get your tickets. So, Introduction to Robot Framework, Browser Kierjasto Słomeski. Oh, it's in Finnish. That's why I don't understand it. Mobile Automation with Robot Framework and Appium in English and Romanian. Browser Library for Selenium Library User in Deutsch. Apologize to those of you who speak German, because I just totally did like a horrible rendition of German. I don't speak German. HTTP level testing with the RF requests library, tips and tricks with Robot Framework IDE. There's a bunch of stuff going on here. If you are at all interested in robotics, check it out. And you probably are asking yourself, why do I have something on robotics? Because that deals neither with Kubernetes nor with Cloud Native. There's a little bit of a link to the Kubernetes thing before, but the reason is because that synergistic thing that the internet does brought me this yesterday, which for you is 2 days ago. I'll try and get that right. So it brought me this 2 days ago. And I didn't put it on the show yesterday, but it was going to go on the show for today, and conveniently the other thing coincided. I love it when that happens. This is exploring the robot operating system DOS with Kubernetes. It starts out with what is Kubernetes, because the people who are reading this are probably more on the robotics side than on the Kubernetes side. We know what Kubernetes is. We don't need to read that section. This talks about how you can use Kubernetes with ROS2. It explains a little bit about the fundamentals of the robot operating system, and then it talks about where containers and pods and CNIs and so on. Oh, interesting. ROS2 discovery depends on multicast. So by default, RTPS and ROS2 uses UDP multicast traffic to locate domain participants. Although it does support unicast, this feature has not been exposed. So there are some caveats here, but hey, look at that. Calico does not support multicast. Oh, I've read that as Calico does support multicast. Okay. Well, what are they using then for CNI? Well, looks like it's a great article. We will learn what CNI supports multicast traffic. Although I can't scan quick enough to find that. So if you're interested in robotics, if you're interested in ROS2, here's an article on using ROS2 with Minikube and figuring out multicast. Keda. Ooh. Keda 2.0. Keda 2.0 is out. This is the Kubernetes event-driven autoscaler. We've had it on the show a couple of times before. It enables you, Keda, enables you to trigger autoscaling based on arbitrary events from arbitrary sources. In fact, if I go to their main page, we can see that event-driven, autoscaling made simple, so on and so forth. Okay, so here are the things that you can plug into. Now, not all of these are available in the community edition. You see that it says maintainer, community, and so on. I think some of these are actually paid. But I could be wrong. It might just be that they are maintained by certain organizations. Anyway, there's a bunch of stuff here that you can plug this thing into to trigger scaling of your Kubernetes workloads based on arbitrary events, number of things in the queue, predictive stuff, all sorts of things. And now they have 2.0 out. And it has some really cool features. You can install it from Operator Hub. You can install it with Helm. You can install the manifest directly because it's Kubernetes. Hooray! They now, all right, so Keda 1.x supported scaling of both jobs or deployment type workloads by specifying what the thing was in a scaled object resource, but it was only limited to those two types of things. So they've now split that out. So there's a scaled object and a scaled job resource, and you can now trigger autoscaling based on multiple triggers, which is pretty great. So you can point it at lots of different things, and they can either work collectively or independently to scale your objects or your jobs. I think Thursday is going to be totally awesome Thursday. Yesterday was super positive Wednesday or something. We will not be held down by the bad internet. And so today's going to be totally awesome Thursday. Note that we're not drinking coffee because it's 10:30 at night. I'm drinking kombucha, which is actually, I brew kombucha. Did you know that? No, you probably didn't. I brew super delicious kombucha. Although I just realized this is probably also somewhat caffeinated. We'll find out when I try to sleep in a little bit. So Keda, now you can scale things besides deployments and jobs. Ooh, you can scale stateful sets, any other custom resource that implements a scale sub-resource, such as Argo rollouts. Talk about scaled jobs. Now they have new scalers. You can plug this thing into Azure Log Analytics, IBM MQ scalers, CPU and memory scalers. By using the new CPU and memory scalers, you no longer have to mix and match scaled objects with horizontal pod autoscaling. You can simply use Keda and it will handle the HPA configuration for you. I'm telling you, that's some amazingness right there. They have a new metrics API scaler, so you can automatically scale on metrics provided through a REST API without having to build your own scaler. Does anybody still have one of those easy buttons from Staples? Can you set it aside for me so that I can, does Staples still sell them? I think they're vintage now. Anyway, if you have one, if you're thinking of throwing it away, keep it so that you can give it to me so I can like press it on the show. And maybe we'll make like a backend API where you can make it say different things, and I'll press the button and then I'll have to apologize because it'll say something horrible, or like make a fart noise or something like that. Keda now exposes liveness and readiness probes on both operator and metrics server pods. So you've got better overview of the state and health. Prometheus metrics about each use scalar. It's got a ton of stuff in it. Migration is a little touchy because it's so different. They have a migration guide that's linked here. And they close by saying you cannot run Keda 1.x and 2.0 side by side, which kind of makes sense because they're like fundamentally different creatures. And I imagine that they would just have a cage fight inside your Kubernetes cluster, rawr, right? Keda. And in the synergistic wonderfulness of the internet, this was going to go on the show yesterday and didn't make it. And so now it's on the show today. It's a little bit of an older article, but I was going to put it on anyway. It's from October 21st. Don't you love it? Like things that are 2 weeks old are like, oh my gosh, that's so old. It's the truth. In internet time, this thing is older than I am. But not really, as you'll see. I was going to put this on the show originally because I thought, oh, this is like a step-by-step guide for how to actually deploy Keda with some sample application that uses just a node app with RabbitMQ to set up queues, and you can actually practice your auto-scaling. This gentleman, who is this? Javier wrote a whole thing where he said, look, I want to test out some different solutions. Knative, Keda, and Fission, which is interesting because I wouldn't put Knative, Keda, and Fission. Knative and Fission I put in the same box. But Keda, I put in a different box. The auto-scaling box, in fact. I guess Fission technically and Knative technically auto-scale because they're serverless platforms, but I wouldn't use them to auto-scale something else. Keda, I would. So he decided on an architecture for which he created a wonderful image that's very small. Can I blow that up? There we go. So he's going to use Dapper to receive stuff from the outside, load it into RabbitMQ, and then pull it into workers and actually do stuff, triggering autoscaling via the HPA through Keda. This looks totally practical. And that's what he built. And that's what he shows you how to build. So install RabbitMQ, install Dapper, install the Dapper bindings for RabbitMQ. Here's your manifests, create the gateway, do all of this stuff. You can follow along with this. And the best part about this article, not the demo application, it is that, boom, it uses Keda v2. Now it's using a release candidate because it came out, 15,000 billion microseconds ago in internet time. But just swap that out instead of 2.0.0-RC, just run the straight 2.0 and you're in business. So today I gift you with Keda 2, and an environment in which you can test it. This is cool. I almost made this tool of the day, but I have something else for tool of the day. And rather than wait for this to go into tomorrow's show, I decided to put it on as not the tool of the day. Trivy, we talked about a while ago. Hello, Steve Jaguar. You are the one who introduced me to Trivy. Steve doesn't work at Aqua anymore. Trivy is a comprehensive vulnerability scanner for containers and other artifacts suitable for CI. It'll scan stuff. It'll scan your images and it'll tell you what's going on. And that's great. When I had Trivy on the show, somebody asked, can it be used to scan things that are in the cluster? And I said, no, because it can't. It's designed to scan stuff, your images or artifacts in like a CI system. It has a client server thing, but it's like, it's got to have its hands on the thing. Well, non-standard logic, Surge, wow, I don't know if that's Mbikina or Mbikina, Surge Mbikina. Surge, we're just gonna call him Surge. Surge created this. And Richard also created it. I suppose I should just pick the guy whose name is first in the list. Surge and Richard created this. This takes Trivy and deploys it as a sidecar and then uses that to figure out what the image is in the primary container to which it's attached, and then it performs all of its image scanning. So it's a way to get Trivy running in cluster, which is kind of neat. I don't know if, I can't imagine that I want this running attached to every single container that I have, but there's probably some way to limit it to what it attaches to. Regardless, pretty neat. Oh, let's see, deploy test pod. Yeah, okay, so injector.tumblr.com request equals kubescan. That's weird. So I saw this, I have not deployed it. I have not tested it. It has limited documentation. I just got as far as being like, okay, that's pretty cool. And I thought I would put it on the show. So vulnerability scanner using Kate sidecar injector. Ah, yes, let's go look at the actual agent itself. Where did that go? So kubevscan just handles the injection bit. Kubevscan agent, well, that's not very helpful either. Okay, we're gonna have to actually run this to find out how actually valuable it is, but from the outside, it looks pretty cool. This is also kind of old, but it's still super relevant. The bots dug it up yesterday. HashiCorp Nomad 1.0 beta. Nomad, you say? Really? Yeah, Nomad. We've had conversations about Kubernetes versus Swarm. And honestly, I see a lot of stuff where people are like, you don't need Kubernetes, and like Kubernetes is really hard to use, and Kubernetes has a lot of technical debt, and so on and so forth. Yeah, sure, okay, whatever. Like, Kubernetes is a tool that solves a problem, and it's an appropriate fit for that problem. It solves lots of problems. It's not an appropriate fit for every problem. I think that what we can all agree on is that what people need, what everybody universally needs if you're doing anything with containers, is orchestration, right? I don't think any of you disagree with me on that. So if we can agree that everybody needs orchestration, and if we can agree that not everybody needs Kubernetes, then that means that other orchestrators are potentially useful and have a place in the world. I trust everything that HashiCorp builds. I even trust Waypoint. I don't understand Waypoint, but I trust it. I trust it to be useful and to do what it's going to do. So if I was going to deploy an environment that did not run Kubernetes, I wouldn't pick Swarm. I might pick Nomad. In fact, Nomad is probably at the top of the list of the things that I might pick. I've never used it. I know that a lot of people do, and rolling out 1.0 beta, which I also think that it's pretty amazing that HashiCorp is still working on Nomad. And, you know, in the days of Kubernetes, with so much of their business actually dependent on Kubernetes, sorry, I'm reading something here that's pretty funny. They're still rolling Nomad. Nomad still has a place in the world. With this release, Nomad has achieved a major release in both functionality and quality, since the 1.0 designation is one that HashiCorp takes seriously. And that's a link. I wonder what's on the other side of that link. The path to Nomad 1.0. Okay. Whatever. Apparently, they take it very seriously. So good for them. I might just have to put Nomad out somewhere. You know, I have a list of things that I might just have to do someday. Eventually, I'll start working on one of them. I would like to put Nomad out somewhere. I'd like to test it. I'd like to understand it. I'd like to you know, that's how I determine the value of things, is I you know, pick them up and look at them and smell them and taste them and stuff. And then I can figure out where they go in the universe. Speaking of interesting things and where they go in the universe, this Medium article popped up. Inclavare, confidential computing container technology for cloud native. We had some stuff on a few weeks back about Google's confidential computing stuff that's available in GKE. That was the first that I'd run into it, and I thought it was just straight up magic. And now, also old news, but new to me, is this initiative from Alibaba Cloud to provide open source confidential computing container technology for cloud native, probably also at scale. This article it's like a transcript of a presentation that they did. So it's got some slides in it, and it's got some big words and stuff like that. And I read the whole thing and I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't as useful as I thought it would be. but the project itself, I think, actually is. Here's their GitHub repo. The idea here is that it's a system to work with enclaves, the hardware security systems that run protected areas of RAM to prevent things from compromising and then cascading through into other stuff, and would enable you to run confidential computing containers. They have a nice webpage here. I have zero hardware that I can test this on, but if any of you are working in a bare metal environment or working anywhere that has access to Intel processors that have SGX instruction sets, I'd be interested to know if you're looking at this, and if you have, if you haven't, if you would, and yeah, and where you would put it with your applications in your universe. It looks like it's pretty easy to get started. And they even have, oh nice, develop and deploy a hello world. That's really funny. Hold on, I gotta go back to that. So here's up and running, and then, let me make this a little bit bigger. It says the next step is to develop and deploy a hello world container in a Kubernetes cluster. It's now 10:40 p.m. It's way past my bedtime, and I read, develop and deploy a Hello Kitty container. I want a Hello Kitty. In fact, I think I'm going to stop making Hello World containers, and I'm just going to make Hello Kitty containers. Today I learned that it is not pronounced MinIO, it's pronounced MinIO. Which makes sense. I liked MinIO though. MinIO. MinIO has a very nice 6-minute video on how to deploy their operator. Their operator is pretty ridiculous. We got an image here. Wow, I clicked in the right place. The idea is that if you have multiple tenants in your Kubernetes cluster and you want to give them independently accessible and accessible, I just said the same word twice, independent S3 object storage facilities, then you can use the operator to deploy those. And it creates a custom resource called a tenant, and it's all accessible. This shows you how to do it. Let's see, so they've got the manifest, create the namespace, apply the operator, create a tenant, where you designate servers as the number of pods that you want it to run, what's the access mode for the storage class, and then how much storage do you want to allocate and how many volumes per server. Once this is created, it can do automatic TLS certificate generation. And then after a few minutes, it actually shows up as running. So here you'd be able to see tenant A, tenant B, tenant C, you know, all of them, and be able to interact with them independently. Beyond that, it talks about how to consume MinIO S3 storage. So from in the cluster, it creates a service that corresponds to the tenant name. So there can only be one tenant name per namespace, and or I guess one tenant per namespace, just for security reasons. That makes sense, right? But then all of the workloads that need to consume S3 object storage just hit the service directly, and it's easy peasy. And then of course, MinIO has, I mean, it's fully S3 compatible. I'm a huge fan of their product. It has a browser-based browser for all of the objects that are in the store, and then an admin console as well. Whoops. Hey, look at that. Wow, I just totally did not want to see YouTube's homepage with that dude's face on it. Wow. Yeah, so there's an admin interface. I think that's what I was trying to get to. And yeah, an administrator console that'll give you a view into all of the tenants and everything that's going on inside of the cluster. Very slick and appropriate use of an operator, and I'm excited to see them with a video. Next up, we have some stuff from Calico. We've had Calico on the show a lot in the last couple of days. This is an article from April of 2019. 2019. This might be the oldest article that I've had on the show. Because certainly 2019 is not within the last 24 to 72 hours, which is kind of pretty much the criteria for getting stuff on the show. But hang out with me. This is networking data, so it's not actually old. This is a comparison between kube-proxy modes of iptables or IPVS. And it goes into the history of When I was a young boy, we had user space mode, and that's slow. So there's two modes that kube-proxy can operate in, iptables proxy or IPVS proxy mode. IPVS is an actual load balancer that I remember when it wasn't part of the kernel. It's kind of cool to see that it is now. So it's actual load balancer. And what they dug into is the actual performance hit between iptables chains and IPVS. And actually, I might be thinking of LVS, not IPVS. LVS, Linux Virtual Servers. IPVS, different thing. So they did a comparison and they determined that average round trip response time, they talk about how they set up this test, but average response time is negligibly different between the two of them until you get to more than 10,000 backend pods. Okay, and there it starts to creep up and IPVS begins to show its increased value. But if you notice these colors down at the bottom, if you use keep alive, well, then your performance is actually just fine. So it's kind of 6 to 1, half dozen of the other, depending on what scale you're operating in. There is a slightly larger performance hit on iptables versus IPVS at the CPU, according to the number of services. But again, until you get up to something pretty large, it's not that big of a deal. They close with a very interesting thing that shows kube-proxy's number of iptables rules executed per connection versus number of iptables rules executed per connection versus number of services between kube-proxy and Calico. And you notice that kube-proxy is that blue bar that climbs and Calico is that orange thing that doesn't. And that's because of how they group their iptables rules. So there's effectively zero hit on anything when you're using Calico. The more I read about Calico, the more I like them. It seems like they're just doing networking and doing it really well. But again, you wonder, why do I have this article from 2019 on the show in 2020? And it's because of Arseny. Arseny is on the show again, and he, much like me, was sitting there wondering something. One day, I wondered, how is load balancing between pods working in Kubernetes? This is how he starts his article, his very long and juicy article, because everything that Arseny writes is just amazingly detailed. So he digs into kind of the same thing, talks about user space mode on kube-proxy, and then iptables proxy mode, and then IPVS proxy mode. But he doesn't stop there, and he's not Calico. He's not, like, he has no agenda. He's just like, how the heck does this work? And he goes nuts into explaining the details of the different load balancing modes in IPVS and how it all works and how you can actually, go digging in and finding out and looking at logs and creating tests and looking at config maps and digging into iptables rules and load balancers. And the man is a beast at writing blogs. That's iptables. Here is an easy flowchart for how we make decisions. So I give this to you. This is actually what the bots dug up. And I love everything that he writes. It makes me feel stupid. And while I don't like feeling stupid, I really like reading things written by smart people. So yeah, here you go. Arseny, thank you. And then he closes with a whole bunch of super useful links for lots of other stuff that you can go and play with. Okay. Yeah, so we're at the tool of the day part, and I'm gonna, really? I'm already at 30 minutes? Man. Okay, I'm gonna have to do this really quick. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. This popped up yesterday, and you may have heard me say at some point in the past that I wish I had focus follows eyes. I love focus follows mouse, focus follows eyes. Like I want to be able to look at something and have that be the window. So I can just look back and forth between stuff like, Command C, look, Command V, look back, select or whatever. Also, a few years ago, I had a standing desk that I built and it was not quite at the right angle. So I ended up with like a weird constant muscle, where's my camera? Constant muscle tension here that after some number of months went from like not a problem to a big problem in the space of a few days. And it was just constantly cramped. I had to like take a tennis ball and constantly try and like break up the fascia as it was getting all crunchy, and it really, really hurt a lot. And I thought for sure that was it. I was like, RSI, I'm done. My career is done. And I went and looked up things for dictation and controlling your computer by your voice, and they are all terrible. And Dragon discontinued dictation for Mac, just super rude. This is a project that's been created for people who have no hands, no control of their arms, and want to control their computer with their voice. What caught my eye was eye tracking, but that actually requires an external device that I didn't even know existed. That's pretty cool. But what I'd like to give you is just a very quick demonstration of Talon. It's open source. They do have a Patreon tier. For $25 a month, you get access to early features and higher priority support. If you actually have any type of RSI and you want to use this, I think $25 a month to get access to, well, just wait until you see what it's done. This is untrained. I set it up and I spent about a half an hour with it. And yeah, let's, you won't be able to see all of the windows that it opens, but I'm just gonna try and show you a few things. So let's first of all, let me turn its voice back on so it stops trying to do things while I was working with it. Talon wake. Tab previous. No, that's not it. Tab last. Tab next. Tab next. Talon mute. Escape. Talon mute. Talon sleep. It helps if you give it the right instruction set. So here we have their getting started guide. Talon wake. Scroll down. Talon sleep. Everything is written in Python. You can build your own actions. You can build your own everything. It's completely scriptable for whatever you want it to do. And they, in their getting started guide, they have you get started with a repo that has a bunch of scripts, but it's like super, 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 super easy to make it do stuff. So let me see, I wrote a little sample script, and let's see if we can make this work. It has a phonetic alphabet that's different from the phonetic alphabet that you're used to, even if you work with like, the man, I just totally lost my phonetic alphabet. Anyway, so it's different. So you're gonna hear me say some weird, funny words, but just bear with me. Talon wake. Focus I term. Control U. Escape. Control U. Escape. All right, he's not liking that one. Vest, sit, enter. Sit. Dictation mode. Say goodbye. Enter. Command mode. Control U. Command mode. Escape. Help alphabet. Drum drum. Say goodbye. Escape. Colon quench bang. Enter. Focus Firefox. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Talon. Help, close. Talon, sleep. Now I'll turn off his microphone again. Yeah, so it's kind of amazing. That say goodbye thing that that you saw. Whoops. It was simply user Monachus. It was really simple. It was just, it recognizes a command now of say goodbye, and it will type, thank you for watching Coffee and Cloud Native. I mean, I can do it anywhere. I just happen to be in VI. If I turn this back on, Talon wake, say goodbye. Talon sleep. It's crazy. It's so cool. All right, so that's Talon. They've got a wiki. It's super undocumented. They've actually done a really good job of creating some documentation. If you've ever used Dragon Dictation for Mac, it's not available anymore. If you already have it, great. If you don't, they actually created a dictation engine called Wave 2 Letter. So it's free. You download that. It's pretty reliable. I'm still trying to figure out things like how do you delete words and how do you undo text if it gets something wrong. It doesn't have a training engine, but this is like the 0.1 release. It's under active development. It's amazing. And that's it. I meant to spend more time with it, but yeah, but we're already like super late. So yeah, I started the show at like a random time, so I don't have a sense of like how long it's been. So let's just, let's get the heck out of here. If you liked what you saw today, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, follow me on YouTube, follow me in all the places you can follow me. Links to everything that I talk about on the show go up in the free community site at community.cncn.io after the show ends. Come join us. Community members get access to the video replay a day before the rest of the internet, and during that day, you also get no ads. Yay! The rest of the internet gets ads. Membership in the community site is free, and it's growing every day. If you have something that you'd like me to consider for the show, hit me up, let me know, mention me in a post on the community site, pin me on Discord or Twitter. We're gonna talk about how this worked. I'm in the chat right now, which is kind of weird because I'm also right here. So the idea is that this will be reliable until I can figure out what the problem is with my ISP. And if I can't figure that out, then I'm just gonna figure it out when I move back to the United States. Oh, did I say that out loud? Shoot. Okay, well, anyway, we can talk about that later. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Right now, I'm gonna let you get back to work. Thank you so much for watching. Stay caffeinated, keep learning, and I will see you in the next show. Goodbye, everyone.